official thing here. How about that? So good morning.
Good morning.
Everybody.
All rise.
All hail.
We don't
The new
need to
judge.
rise for that. So I think this thing's working.
Now it is.
So you got the report on Bill. Really sad that Bill couldn't be here today. I was really looking forward to his presentation. I was really excited about it. And he said he'll do it another time. So hopefully he's feeling great next month and able to do that next month. We'll just play it by ear. So we're going to call it audible today. I'm going to teach a thing. We're going to talk a little bit about internet security and protecting yourself on the internet. And I'm not going to take a real deep dive there, but we'll get to that in a little bit. So first, welcome. Glad to have everyone here. I think we have one visitor today. Is that right? Did you introduce yourself last night? No. Oh, well, why don't you stand and tell everybody who you are and what kind of security you use and anything else you want to tell us.
My name's Donna, and I first came here like over a year ago because I was going to a meeting in the church, and I just happened to see you guys. And anyway, I was thinking about switching from Android to Apple for my phone, and so I have since done that, and now I need a laptop, and I'm thinking about switching from Windows to the Apple's platform.
Good choice.
So I'm thinking, so that's why I'm here.
Well, that's good news. I hope you love your Apple iPhone.
I do. I love it.
Anybody else have any important, you're glad you're here? Everybody's glad they're here, considering the weather?
Yeah.
Okay, let's get into news. The biggest news item I saw this morning kind of made me chuckle. Apple has to pay a fine to the French government for that battery fiasco a couple of years ago, where your battery, it would tell you it had problems and not charge correctly. So they got fined 25 million euros. And they make about $35 million every second. So I don't think it was a big deal to Apple. They agreed to pay it. I just thought that was interesting. Any other news anybody wants to talk about? I know there's some other news. I got some notes on my thing, but I'm not going to stop and look at it. But other news, there was a new beta. iOS 13.3.1 was released. It's solid. It's good. I've updated all my devices, including iPad, to the iPad OS 13.3.1. They just put out the beta for .4, which is going to include some interesting new features. One of the new features is going to be if you use a key fob that uses now I can't remember the name of it, but it uses that NFC for your key fob. You'll be able to use your phone for that key fob now. And it'll actually replace your key fob with your phone if you have a newer iPhone, which is pretty cool. So that's in the new beta, as well as iCloud sharing, so you can share folders with people like you would with Dropbox. That's also in this new beta, which is pretty exciting if you're me. Any other news? Apple news? We're going really fast here. No other news? All right, let's move on to freebies. Wanted, for sale. Anybody have anything they want to talk about? Yes.
We've got potential for sale stuff. I have a Kindle Touch, which I got my wife because she likes to read books. Checks them out from the library all the time, likes to read them. I got it, put a few books on there for her, even read one myself. But she's really not into the techie business. She still goes to the library and checks her books out. So this cost a little over $100. I'm looking for $15 for it for anybody who wants it. Works fine. It's got a few books in there already, and it's a touch. It's got the charging wire that goes with it. And anyway, $15 I'm asking. Then I got something else here. This is a relic from the past. It's a 32 gigabyte iPod Touch. I don't know how many of you ever had an iPod Touch.
I still have one.
You still have one?
Yeah.
And
They're still working.
I've got two of them.
this one's working too. And it's been reset to factory settings. It's only got one entry. I enter English, so that whoever starts working with it can set it up the way they want it in English. And I've got two cases for it. One's a rubber case, one's a leather case. And on that, make me an offer. You know, I'm not gonna use it anymore. I got 3 iPads at home, so I don't need an iPod, a little small screen iPad, so to speak. Don't need it. So make me an offer on that. 15 for the Kindle.
Those were great. I remember the day they start talking about how many songs you had in your pocket now. Still those things. Anybody else? Dan, go ahead.
Well, speaking of freebies, I put an icon over on the freebie table. If anybody still has the charging cable for it, you're welcome to it. But I can't remember the capacity. It's probably like 16.
That was always pretty small.
But on the for sale side, the camera case is still up for sale. This has served me well over decades, but still in good shape. And then inside, I've still got a Olympus digital camera and a OMDP or whatever OMD port for your Japanese car. So, anybody interested, contact me in intermission.
By the way, did everybody see the email I sent out about our change to the webpage? For sale, okay? So far, I've not had any input. So we'll give you another month, and if it's not something we're going to use, I'm going to take it down.
I have something I'll send you. I just forgot to do it. I'll send it to you too if you want. Anything else for sale? Anything you need, you want, before we get to help desk? Nothing? Done. Let's move to help desk. There has to be some help desk. Bill's not going to be here to solve them, so it may not be as good, but it'll be entertaining. Any help desk items?
Man, this is gonna be a quick meeting.
Fast meeting. We're going to get done there. I guess the snow spooked the hell out of you. Anything? Any issues? Any problems? Everybody's going smooth? Yes.
I don't really need help at this moment, but I've had some entertaining things. Trying to, when iTunes got separated,
Yes.
one of them was books. I don't sit and read a lot, but I audio book quite a bit. Well, here and there. And so I had to move everything manually over because I have everything on external hard drive. And I was doing a little reading in the Take Control media, like we're going to have under Apple. And basically it said if you have a large library of audiobooks, not to put it in the Books app, which I found rather fun and entertaining. So, and it's not really on it. Well, they said that they just said it's because a lot of those files in audiobooks are hidden someplace, and that's all. They didn't really go into any more detail. But that's just a commentary of something I read into, and then I did check the Take Control for media.
That's interesting. I use audible.com. That's where I get my audible books. They have their own library, so I haven't run into that. But I'm not surprised by the comments. They tend to be very conservative. The authors of all these books are very conservative, and I'm not surprised. But
You don't download yours to ebooks though, right? You just,
I do that too. I have ebooks, but Audible books, the ones I listen to, I do it in audible.com, and they have their own app. And I listen to them in that app.
oh, in the app,
That's for Audible books.
right.
But I don't get them from Apple when I do Audible books. It's one of the
Well,
things.
I didn't get these from Apple. I probably got most of them from the library.
Oh, from the
You didn't hear
library.
me say that,
I never heard that. Nobody heard that. Yes, Ray.
I have this thing with iTunes, or whatever it's called, the music thing. And it seems like as they improve these things, they get worse. And really what it is you don't know, it's hard to tell what they mean by whatever, but now they seem to be asking me to pay by the month to listen to music I've had on my computer for years.
Well, let's talk about that. There's two different things.
Okay.
And I'm not gonna get all these terms exactly right, because I don't have them right in front of me, but we can find an article to send you. So, Apple has a subscription music service. And if you pay for the subscription music service, there's like 30 million songs there that you can get anytime and all kinds of features. And that's a separate thing. It costs for an individual $9.95 a month or $9.99, and then there's a family one of 14 something. That's a subscription thing. You can still keep the stuff in your own personal library, and I don't remember what they call that library, but you can still do that and not pay a penny and just have it all on your hard drive or wherever you want to store it and play it from there. Usually it's on the drive on your Mac. And that still will work. And you can use that service and it still will work just like it did in the past for the most part. But there are two distinct services and you just have to be careful. You do not have to pay for the subscription service to use your own music library.
Okay, this is all things I already know. Just how do I find it? When I go into I got it, my computer with me by accident today, but I have albums that I've purchased in the past, and I'm not a big one for listening to music constantly, but there's things I like, and I hear a song I like real well, and I buy it, and, well, this has been in the past, or I've taken it off of CDs and put it into the computer.
Are you a Kelly?
But I don't know how to find it.
Are you a Kelly?
Yeah.
I'll send you something you can look at. I'll tell
Okay.
you exactly how to do that, because I don't remember off the top of my head. But I do know it can be done, and I do know it's in there. I just don't remember where it's at. I have to sit down at the computer and look it up.
Yeah.
But we'll get you an answer for that.
You know, Ray, you logged into your account,
Am I logged in right now, this minute?
to your music account?
No, I don't have it turned on.
No, I meant, when you go in there, are you logged in?
Good question.
I guess.
You have to log in with your Apple ID to be able to download your purchase. It may be that some of your purchase things are still up in the cloud and haven't come down when they switched over, so.
Yeah, you own them. It's just your account. You have to log into your account. If it's stuff you bought from Apple, you would have to log in to have access.
It's under account at the top menu, there's an account thing, drop-down window.
Okay.
And if it says sign in, then you're not logged in. If it says log out, then you are signed in.
Maybe it's a break. You want to just share your computer. and figure it
Yeah,
out.
that's what I was thinking.
I
I'll
just
fire my
wanted to
computer
buy
up and see it on break.
record, and I ended up with this whole subscription
Oh, you bought the subscription by accident?
by accident, so I had to go in and get them to cancel the subscription. It was a mess.
Yeah, there have probably been more people than you that have logged in and accidentally bought the subscription service, yeah.
It may be that under general preferences, the library, there's a checkbox there for sync the library,
Yeah.
and it may be that those things are still in the cloud.
And you want to have that checkbox thing, so if you just catch up after the break, and it does work, I know it works, but I use the subscription service, so I don't use it a lot. I have my own albums in there too. That's important to check that out. Any other help items? Boy, I'm glad there wasn't a ton of them today. We saved them all for Bill next week.
I don't know if I can explain this or not, but I was using LibreOffice,
Yes.
and I was trying to have one cell reference another cell directly, but then I wanted to move that cell over, but keep the reference to the one that was there. And I thought that it told me to put a $.
That's the way it usually works. You put a $sign in front of both
Yeah,
the letter and the number, so it'd be like $A, $1.
so when I did that, and then I put a new column in front of where I wanted it, it moved over just like it was a reference. It did not stay with the original one that I had put the $signs on.
Yeah, I haven't tried that with LibreOffice. I've done it in Excel, and it does it automatically.
I tried it with numbers,
Numbers, yeah.
and it did the same thing with numbers.
Okay, I'll check that out. That should work.
I
But you
thought
just-
it should, I thought it did it several times, but
I think it's intended to keep the cells from changing if you copy. If you copy one row to the next row, it will keep that reference fixed.
But when you insert, it's
Add a
different.
row or add a column, I don't
See,
know.
it didn't seem to make any difference to me whether I put the dollar signs in front of them or just left it.
Yeah, but what he's saying is, putting the dollar sign for copying over is different than when you insert.
Yeah.
And so when you insert, there may be a different behavior than when you copy. And I didn't know that that was the case, but that may be true. I'll have to try that. We can try that in the break.
Maybe
Yeah,
more or
the only
less.
option right now is to go back to Apple Works or Apple Script and write a script that does the shifting like I want it to do.
Yeah.
Well, but it may be more or less a logic thing in the fact that when you insert a new column and you've already got a reference to the original column, it assumes that you want to keep that reference.
That's
So
the
it moves it.
And I don't want it to do that, I want it to stay.
Well, that's
their
the
logic.
behavior, that's the
That's,
logic.
that's the logic behind the application. So you have to manually go in there and redo the link to the new column.
That's the problem, I'm sure. Because they assume most people, when they use the dollar sign, are wanting relative reference. Versus what you're trying to do is you're trying to do an absolute reference, which is a different thing. So it's not going to solve that problem. I think that's your issue. Anything else? If not, we are going to move to the raffle already. That is amazing. I'm out of gavel practice. I'm learning. All right. So I'm in my catcher's box here. This is my spot. So Bill got sick, and you're going to have to put up with me for another month. And I was thinking about different topics that we could talk about, and this is a topic that's been on my mind for a while. I'd like to do a much deeper dive, but there wasn't enough time to get a real deep dive and just prepared. So I prepared 5 or 6 points of things that I think are really important to think about as you think about your own personal security when you're online. And I'm going to cover those. And we'll talk about them, and then later this year we may revisit this topic. There's a guy that has been referred to me that talks about security, that does a deep dive in security. We may invite him to come and speak to us later in the year. But today I'll cover very basic topics. But before I do that, before I get into security, there's been one other thing on my mind for a while that I wanted to talk about. Today seemed like the time to do it. And that's, I've had a lot of questions about how to manage your photos if you don't want to use iCloud. And you can't buy iPhoto anymore. You can't buy Aperture anymore. So what are the tools that are available? And I have looked and looked and looked for months now, trying to find a good tool for managing your photos on your Mac if you do not want to use the cloud. So I'm going to present one of those today. The caveat, the thing I'm going to tell you right up front is I've only used this app for a couple hours. So I've played with it, I've toyed with it, but I didn't want to keep it back until we can have a whole session about it. I'm going to share some other information about it, and then you can play with it if you want. It costs about $10 to buy it. It's on the Mac store. I think it's worth looking at. I'll tell you what the good and the bad is, and you can decide if you're interested or not. But I'll show it to you. So that's what we're going to talk about. So we're going to talk about this for a minute, then we'll get into security stuff. And as it turns out, we have time. Okay. I ran across this article. It came in my email box. And the title of the thing was 5 Best Photo Management Software Apps for Your Mac in 2020. The link will be in this email you're going to get. That's the link at the bottom. You can read the whole article. They outline 5 different apps. And the article is fairly well written, and I think they present the case for each of those apps pretty well. But one of those apps I was particularly attracted to, and I installed it on my Mac at home, and I've been playing with it, and I kind of think it's got some advantages. It works pretty well. But it's got some rough spots too, and I'll tell you about those. So this is the app. It's called Unbound. Anybody heard of Unbound before? It's a Mac app. It's in the Mac App Store. It costs, as you can see, $9.99. I did not buy it yet. I've been playing with the demo. You can get a trial version for a period of time. If you go to their webpage, you can download a trial version and run that for a while. I just installed it, and I put some apps and some photos in it, and I play with them, and everything I wanted to do, it let me do. So I'm still using that version. I will eventually buy it because I want to do a whole presentation on this if it's any good. I'm still testing it. But if you're looking for an app and you need to do this and you want to try something, this is something I thought you might be interested in taking a look at. These are some of the key features they talk about, things you can do with the app. You know, you can quickly navigate into your photo library and manage it with your keyboard and your mouse. Photos stay right where you left them. They're on your Mac. They're not in the cloud. You can use the cloud if you want to, but you don't have to. So that's optional. So if you really do not want to use iCloud, you do not want your photos in the cloud at all, this is an option for you. The other thing I wanted to mention is it syncs to existing cloud services, like I said, if you want to use them, if you don't have to. And you can put together slideshows. Slideshows are something a lot of people like to use. It does that. And you can do some viewing and some editing. I would say the viewing and editing is not real powerful, but it's functional. And I found it's limited compared to just photos. I can do a lot more editing with photos, but it works. And I think a lot of people would meet their needs. So this is the albums. I put some albums on the thing. This is an example. These aren't mine. This is their example. So you create albums just like you would inside of Photos. And you can put photos into those albums. You can import photos off of your drive and pull them in, stick them in an album, create an album, name an album, change the name of the album. Those standard features, it's pretty easy to use. Then you can go in and open an album and look at individual photos inside the album. This all looks like standard stuff, doesn't it? It reminds me of iPhotos, to be honest. And so that works really well. You can look at the metadata attached to each photo. You can change metadata, very basic functionality. And then the last thing is you can actually go in, and this is where you edit a picture, you edit a photo. This is probably what I think is their weakest point, is they don't have a lot of editing functionality. It works, it would be okay for most people, but it would not be enough for my day-to-day photo work that I like to do. So it's there. Here's the good and the bad and the ugly, or whatever you want to call it. The good, it works. I mean, it really does work. I haven't fully tested it yet, but it does work. And if you really insist on not using the cloud, you can do that. Your pictures are only going to be on your phone. There's not a way to get them over to on your Mac. If you're out on the road somewhere and you want to pull them up, you can't pull them up. Yes.
What were the reasons when you looked at the low ratings that they give?
Yeah, they were all over the place. People just had little nagging complaints. I think one of the complaints was they don't update it very often. But I thought the update rate for this kind of app wasn't that bad. I looked at the previous updates. They seem to be reasonable for what's going on with Mac. But it did have really bad ratings. The average rating was 1.7 or something like that. And I read through all the reviews, and you can read them if you want to go home and read them. I didn't think all of them were things. I think people just sometimes like to complain, but they were there, and you can read them. And limited editing, to me, the biggest negative is the limited editing tools. But maybe when I get into it and dig in more, maybe I'll be more surprised than what my initial.
I thought maybe a lot of times if something's too complicated or there's too much you can do, people don't like it because it's not simple enough.
No, I didn't get any of that. I think some people try to use it for more than it is, though. You know, this is a very basic app. It's not going to do everything. And I think people come into it thinking it's going to be more than it is. I think that caused some of the problems. Because it is pretty basic. It's pretty simple, pretty easy to use, which I think is its advantage. You know, if you're just wanting to put pictures in a library and have them stored and organized on your Mac, that's what this thing does. And so that's kind of my take. And as I dig in further, if I learn more, I'll share more at a future time. I really want to do a full presentation just on managing photos on your app, and this is what I would use. But I wanted to share it because there was a lot of questions about it, and I've not been able to answer them up until now. So I thought I would update everybody on where I'm at. Okay, back to where we were. So I want to talk about your security on the internet and how you manage your security, some very basic things that you can do to get a level of protection. And some of this stuff is common sense. You've heard it before. Some of this stuff may be new to you. If it is, we'll talk about them. And then we'll give some examples and talk about some things that we've seen in the wild, so to speak. So, number one, stay up to date. I know there's a big reservation about installing updates because we worry sometimes that Apple's going to release an update that's going to crash our system, or some app developer is going to release some update that's going to have major negatives. That's all fine. You can wait a little while, but I encourage you, if you really want to be protected, especially with the operating system, stay up to date. Updates is probably the number one thing you can do to have the latest security protection on your operating system and on your Mac. And some risk, always some risk, but it is the number one thing you can do, is to install the updates soon after they become available, because there's always security updates in those updates. And this is a very basic thing. Most people think it's kind of common sense, but it really is important.
Do you think the risk is greater to not update than having some crash with your system?
I do. Not always, but a lot of times, because some of the updates are to protect against some very basic things. This update that just happened last week, I forget the security breach, but it was a big hole, big gaping hole in security. And if you didn't install it, then you were stuck with that, but there's nothing else that can be done except for installing the update. And so I think staying updated is a major thing, is bigger protection than the risk of having some new bug. Because there's always going to be some software bug, but there isn't always going to be that security update if you patch it.
Do you, Rick, do you automatically set up your computers to do automatic updates on everything, or choose to do it manually yourself?
I tell them to do it
I've always
manually
gone to the
myself.
Apple store and looked at updates and picked out and did it manually just in case.
Yeah. I do the system updates, I always do myself. I have it not do those automatically because I want to see what they're changing. Most of the app updates, I have those turned on to do automatically.
I see.
But, you know, at times in my life I've done it manually. I don't think it matters which way. I don't think those are as big an issue with security as the operating system changes. Those are the ones that tend to need the updates for security reasons. Every so often, there'll be some app, like 1Password or one of these password apps, that has a major security update. That does happen. But most apps, like if you got a game on your phone, there's not usually a big security feature related to an app. Sometimes there is, but it's not as big as the ones on the operating system. Any other questions on updates? Yes?
Is Mac keeping the older operating systems up to date?
Back, is it like 2 generations?
I'm thinking
14?
of
13
Sierra.
and 14.
13 and 14. They do a small window, but they don't do it forever. They only go back, in this case,
Currently
13 and
2
14,
passed.
so 2 passed. So if you're on Mojave, you'll get updates. If you're on High Sierra, you'll get updates. But if you're on Sierra, you're not going to get security updates.
Yeah, I don't get it.
On the automatic updates, it still asks you if you want to do that. It gives you the choice. What it does is it automatically downloads it. So you can either put it off for a while, it'll ask you an hour tomorrow or whatever, but
Yeah, when do you want to install it?
nice thing about it is it's already downloaded, then when you do the update, it's already there, you don't have to sit there and wait, 2 hours to download, 3 or 4 gigabytes of stuff.
But if you're in the middle of a conference call with somebody and you don't want your Mac to reboot and reload,
Right.
you can make it wait.
Yeah.
So
So the window will come up in the top right corner, it says, restart now, that means it's already been downloaded.
It does the same thing on the iPhone and the iPad.
Yeah, it'll
Yeah,
have to.
I get those little things all the time. It says, you have an update, do you want to do it now or later? You hit later, it says, tell me tomorrow.
Yeah.
Exactly, that's what he's talking
That
about.
means it's already downloaded.
It's already down, well, if you come up with a restart, it's already been downloaded. Sometimes it is downloaded, sometimes it's halfway done when it comes up and tells you, so.
Okay.
Yeah, exactly, thank you. Anything else on updates? Updates is a big deal. I can't emphasize it enough. It's really important to stay up to date if you want to stay secure. That's important. I put this screen here, just, it checked mine. I go in every so often and just check to see if there's anything new that I've missed. But just do it. That's the important thing. That's the message here. Yes? Bill?
And system updates are different
Yes.
than app updates. App updates are through the App Store. System updates are in the system preferences.
Does everybody understand that? That was a big change that happened last year, where they moved the system updates into system preferences.
Is that Catalina only is where when
Yeah.
that happened?
Yeah,
Changes it down.
yeah, it just happened this last fall.
Any problems with Catalina? I'm still at Mojave with my newest equipment I did. Had
You know, here's my take. If you don't have any apps that are 32-bit, I have had no other problems. The only thing you have to be aware of is if you've got some old 32-bit apps, they are not gonna work. And there are people that won't update for that very reason, and I get it, I understand that. But if you're not, unless, do you know anything else? I have had no other issues with Catalina. It's been stable, I had no crashing, no issues at all.
I've been running beta, and usually that's where you find problems, and really not, other than, I've got a wireless mouse that disconnects occasionally, but I don't know if that's the, I used it on another computer and it wouldn't disconnect, so I think there might be something with the mouse and the Bluetooth there, and the update, and the beta,
But, you know, if you don't want to upgrade right now, the good news is Mojave will still get security updates for a couple more years. So it's not like you have to update right now to be secure. I think there's other reasons to update, but there are issues that come with Catalina that you just got to be aware of, mainly this app thing.
if you have 32-bit apps that you absolutely have to keep, then what I would suggest doing is getting a backup drive, clone the internal hard drive in Mojave so it'll run your 32 bits. Then you can start your computer up with that if you need to run the 32-bit apps. But then you can go ahead and update to Catalina in the actual computer. So you've got the old operating system and all your stuff on an external hard drive that you can use it. But if you use it daily, that's kind of, silly to update.
I have friends that have 2-bit apps that they insist they have to keep running for the rest of their life. I don't know what that means, but they do this exact thing. They don't boot them every day. They run them once a week or every 2 weeks. When they want to run them, they boot on this external drive, they run them, and then they get back and reboot and boot them. It's a little bit crazy, but that's what they believe, and that's where they're at. I don't know how long they're going to keep that up. Sooner or later, they're going to get tired of it and find an alternative. So, updates. Any other questions on updates before we go on to the next topic?
That software update versus the App Store, that actually does go back to 10.12. That was a security update
Yes.
that happened across.
Yes. It was a big change,
Yeah.
and it was part of security, right? Number 2, use a password manager. How many of you use a password manager? So several of you do, some of you don't. I'm going to make a pitch for this. I don't get no money from any of these people. This is just what I believe in. I really believe this strongly. Yes?
Tell me if what I'm doing is wrong. I don't use one password or any other password manager. I just encrypt a Word document, and I've got 12 pages of passwords and IDs. This takes one password to get into it, but to me, I think it's safe.
It's safe. And if that works for you, I'm going to show you why I use 1Password and why I use some of these newer software. They do things you can't do with your paper. That's all. But if you're happy with that, go. It's safe. It's secure.
Good.
So this is what you don't want to do. Don't write your passwords on a sticky note or on a piece of paper that you lay beside your computer or on your hand, because it's not secure. And I know people, I go to people's houses sometimes, and while I'm there, they'll say, hey, can you take, this always happens to me, can you take a look at my computer? Yeah, I'll come in and take a look at it. I go in there and they've got a big piece of paper stuck all over the walls, and every password they've got. I was at somebody's house the other day, they wanted me to help them update their phone, and they were pulling out papers right and left, and they had multiple passwords, and they were for the same thing. They couldn't figure out which one was the right one. And so it was not only not secure, it was really crazy. We couldn't figure out how to connect. So you want to not be insecure, you want to protect yourself. So I stuck this video in there. You can look at this when you're at home. I'm not going to play the video right now. But if you watched the Super Bowl last week, there was a commercial for a password manager in the Super Bowl. I couldn't believe it. We've actually got to the point where there actually was an ad, a commercial for a password manager right in the middle thing. It's actually kind of funny. You might want to take a look at it. The link will be in your, I think I took it out of the presentation, we're sending it out, but I'll put it somewhere so you get it. But if you go there and watch this thing, or if you just search in Google, in YouTube rather, search for password manager Super Bowl, you'll find it. It's really funny. It's not for one of the ones I use, but it's there. So here's another article. There'll be a link at the bottom. This article compares some of the best password managers. I'm going to talk about 3, because these are the 3 that I think are the best 3 and the ones I would recommend that you take a look at if you don't use one today. And I'll tell you why as I look at each of them. The first one is 1Password. I use 1Password. It's $35, $36 a year. I don't pay yearly because I'm grandfathered. I only paid once, so I don't have an annual subscription. But it's worth its weight. It's dollars. And and what it does. So you remember one password, you log in with that one password, you get all your passwords. I have like 900 of them in there. And believe me, I don't want those 900 passwords on a piece of paper. And it stores all the passwords. Inside the operating system, it brings those passwords in automatically, fills in the fields. So when I'm logging into iCloud or wherever I'm logging into, it fills out the field automatically. And then I can log in. They're secure that way, and it's protected that way. And they have extensions to work with Windows, Mac OS, everything. You can use this on everything. All my logins on the web work out of there too, so they automatically inserts them in the field. So that works really, really well. And I find it to be extremely well done. That's the one I use. A couple of the reasons I do that is, and I think it's on the next slide. The next one I'm going to talk about is LastPass. LastPass, I think they've gone through some tough times. They do offer, this is the one that offers a free version though. If you want some free software, it's relatively limited. It doesn't do all the things across all your devices if you're using the free version. But if you want to use a password manager that's free, this is the one you want to use. If you pay for it, it's $36 a year for their annual fee. It's a subscription. It works on all these various browsers. It works really well. I have lots of friends that use LastPass that love it. It works. It's a good option. And the last one I'll mention is iCloud Keychain. Built in right in your system, both on your iPhone, your iPad, and your Mac. iCloud has its own keychain, which will generate passwords automatically for you. It'll store them for you. It'll put them into fields. It works really well. It's not as easy to access your passwords. You have to go through the password manager and through the keychain to get to them. But it's functional, and it's already in your system. You don't have to pay for it at all. I use it some in parallel to 1Password, but it's just not got all the features, good a feature set for managing your passwords. And I'll show you that, I think, on the next slide. But it works, and I leave it turned on and I use it. A couple other key things about passwords. Use it. Use long, unique, complex passwords. It pays to have really long, complex passwords. Some of my passwords are 30 and 40 characters long. You want them to be hard to break. The longer they are, the longer it takes for a bad guy to get in. Don't use a password like password. That's the number one used password I think right now is password. Or 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. That's a very common password. And when these hackers come in and they want to hack into your system, they know what the most common passwords are. What do you think the first things they try when they do a brute force attack? Brute force attack means they come in and just hammer your system repeatedly, real fast using a computer, and try every possible option. Before they get to the long, complex hardware, they have a database of all the most common passwords that have ever been used. And all those hacks we see all the time, they know all those passwords too. So they go down through those lists real fast and try all those very basic, commonly used options like password. And if that's your password, guess what? They're in your bank account. It's just that simple. 1Password has this interesting system, and LastPass does this too, where you can tell it, how do you want me to build your passwords? So you can say, how long do you want the password to be? You slide the top slider over, and I say, I want mine to be 33 characters long, or whatever it is. Number 2 is how many digits do you want to use, and how many symbols do you want to use, like $ signs and ampersands and things like that. And then I avoid ambiguous characters, and I allow characters to repeat. Those are different things you can set up. It'll generate a password, and I can go in and automatically generate passwords like the one at the top. I would never dream that up in a million years. And every single site should have a unique password. You don't want to use the same password on multiple sites, because if that site gets hacked, then guess what? They've got your password to everything else that uses the same password, because that's the first thing they'll try. That all make sense? Anybody want to know all this stuff? Because this is really important stuff. This is the very basic stuff you want to have. Okay, here's a real life thing. If you use a 7-character password, how long does it take somebody to brute force that password if they didn't know anything? If they just started going through all the options? It takes 0.29 milliseconds if you have a 7-character password. That's how long it would take to crack your password using brute
That's
force.
why they say use the minimum
It
of
doesn't
8
take very long.
most places.
So 7 characters is not very secure. And that's an alphanumeric password. If you just simply change that to 8 characters, it gets to be 5 hours. That's how much little difference makes a big difference in terms
Wow.
of security. If it's 9 characters, which is how long my, as it turns out, my passcode for logging into my phone and my iPad is 9 characters, and this is the reason. If somebody wanted to brute force that, and they could, there's other reasons I'm not going to get into, but if somebody wanted to brute force my passcode, it would take at least 5 days to try every option and instantly retry it over and over and over again. And it's actually a little longer than that because there's like an 80 millisecond delay inside the iPhone that they couldn't defeat. If you go to 10 characters, it gets to 4 months, 11 characters is a decade, 12 characters is 2 centuries, and I use 33.
You gonna live that long?
I hope so. But I know the password, so I don't have to crack it. So you get the idea. You want to use long, unique passwords, special passwords for every site, and that's why a password manager is so important, because you can't remember these things. And you don't want to write them down and try to keep track of them. Yes, Dana?
So rather than random or somewhat random alphanumeric, I know 1Password also gives you the option to use separate words.
With the
Is
hyphen
there-
in between, they're words that you can sound out.
Is that any better or any worse?
It's not any worse, it's not any better, it's just, I think on average, some people would argue it's not as good, but I think it's as good. What people will tell you is that if you use 3 words that have nothing to do with each other, that improves the complexity of the password. But I like just a big, long, complex, no, they won't know what they're dealing with anyway if they're trying to hack my system. So, yes, we'll start up here with Ray.
I'm using 1Password, and one thing that kind of frustrates me is it won't stay up very long, and that's a good thing, because if I get up and walk away in my home, but anyway, get up and walk away, it'll turn itself off. But my password is complex enough that it takes me longer to put in my password for 1Password than.
But what you gotta do, Ray, you gotta use the system just to copy and paste. Because if you click on the password, the little thing comes up beside it, you say copy. Then you go over to where you're doing it, you say paste.
No,
It's done.
no, I'm talking about just getting into 1Password.
There's a preference. You can change your preference for the amount of time it's unlocked.
Yes.
Well, okay.
And depending on what version of this hardware you have, if you happen to have either Touch ID or Face ID, it unlocks automatically as soon as like my phone and my iPad, I look at it, it unlocks. I don't have to type it in. I don't have to type it in. It looks at me and it identifies me by my face or by my finger. And the newer Macs also have Touch ID, so when you get to newer hardware, that gets even better. But you're right, if you got a long one, you got to type it in. It takes a second to type it in.
All right.
Where was the next meeting back?
I remember Bill saying that if you die or something, your family needs to have.
Yes, that's really important.
So if you're using a password manager,
I'll tell you how I manage that.
pardon?
I'll tell you how I manage that.
Okay.
Before I had my last surgery, I had prostate cancer. I had surgery for my prostate cancer. I was really freaked out about this. So before I went to surgery, I created this long document, which I'd been meaning to do for years before that, and it had all the important information. You know what the number 1 item on the list was? This is my 1Password password. So you can get into all my other passwords with this one password. So I created this document. I gave it to my son. I gave it to my wife eventually. And I was really slow about that. She reminded me I did. I sent it to her. And so, you have to manage that. You can with 1Password create vaults that are shared vaults. So you can give somebody else an access to a shared vault. But I just give them my password so they can get in.
Okay. I'm just saying if you're using the password manager, they have to have a password for that one.
Yes, we have to have 1Password. They have to have that 1Password to get into that. So, I try to secure that document. I don't just give it to anybody. I keep it encrypted and protected. But that's the one place I do share that 1Password with my son and my wife.
Okay, fair enough.
With these, you're just saying that they're all letters, or no numbers, or no.
Mine are both. Letters, numbers, and symbols.
Okay, so it's everything.
Letters, numbers, and
Characters.
That's what this setting is digits are numbers. So I would allow digits. So I got a total length of 20 in this case.
Okay.
4 of them are numbers, and 2 of them are symbols, like semicolon, commas, exclamation marks, things like that, which adds to the complexity of it. So now when you create a new password for a site, let's say you're logging into JC Penney. I don't know why you do that, but let's say you want to create a new password for that site. You can create it here. Some sites don't allow certain types of characters as their part of their password. So you have to go in here and edit this so that it'll work in their system. You know, if some sites, I was at a site the other day and I wanted to create a password and I had it set up similar to this, and it came back and said, oh, that password is not acceptable. Well, it's because I had symbols in the password and they wouldn't take symbols.
Yeah.
I was really disappointed. I said, well, you know.
More and more websites are going to two-factor authentication.
Yes, I want to talk about that.
Oh, okay.
I want to talk about two-factor authentication because it's really important. It's the number 2 protection. This is the passwords and complex passwords. This is really important for your security. Anything else before we move on?
Just an observation, the previous where you were exampling A, B, C, D, E, F, G, and all of that. That's not an idea. You're just simply, those are a number of characters you're talking about. So you wouldn't want to do that. If you do that, that's even faster than 29 milliseconds.
Yes.
And that sort of thing. So just that observation.
And it's just a relative thing because there's a lot of what ifs. What if the system is slower, the processor runs it slower? These are just relative comparisons.
Understand.
So that you understand how big a difference a complex long password makes. The longer it is, the more complex it is, the longer it's going to be before somebody can hack it. And it gets to a point where it just becomes not possible.
My real question is, and maybe someone can explain it to me, because it rankles my mind just a little bit. I have all of my passwords in 1Password, for instance. And then I have 1Password that reaches all of those. How is that really better? I mean, if someone hacks my computer and they find out I've got 1Password or some other thing, unless I've got a 27-character password that I've got to remember to get into that, then I have to figure out how to remember that 27 characters.
You got to remember that one. I'll try to answer that, and you tell me if this is satisfactory or not. But number one, the database for 1Password, for LastPass, for all of those systems is encrypted, and they will not crack that. That is going to be, they can get that file. They're not going to get it without knowing your key, and your key is your password. So that's number one. So it's protected, assuming you trust their encryption, which they've got data on their website where they talk about how well encrypted that file is. So you can read about their level of protection of the database itself. So that's there to read, and you can go to their website and they tell you how they do that. Number two, yeah, you don't want your password, your 1Password, to be super simple. I have met people that for their password for 1Password, they use 3 letters or 2 letters. That just is crazy. Mine is real easy for me to remember. It's multiple common words stuck together with some symbols in it, and it's 14 characters. So it would be very hard for somebody to crack that. Now they have to get my system, so I have a level of protection just because they've got to get my device first. They have to get to my device before they can even start to. So if they came in my house, stole my computer, walked out the door, my hard drive is encrypted. So they got to get the hard drive unencrypted. They got to log into that. Then they have to figure this thing out. So it's going to be a tough job. Could it be done? I suppose if they really work hard. But I try to pick a complicated password for 1Password that I can remember real easy, and that I can share with somebody. So if I forgot or I had a stroke tomorrow and couldn't remember anything, somebody else can get into it. It can be done. It takes some work.
That's where phrases come in too.
Yes, this is a good place for a phrase.
Is better. So if you put words together in a phrase with symbols and stuff that comes from your history, your background, your education, your upbringing, whatever, it'll be easier to remember that.
Yeah, very much the case. By the way, I use the 1Password. You know how all these sites, they have those questions that come up like, who was your first grade teacher? Where did you live when you were 1 year old? I answer all those questions with long, complicated passwords too. And then I store them in 1Password. So those are not real answers because people can social engineer your answers. If they look at my history long enough, I'm so on the web, somebody can figure out where I went to high school, where I went to elementary school, who my mom was, what her maiden name was. That stuff is all on the internet. I assume that they're going to get access to everything that's common knowledge, to at least me. So I use long, complex passwords to answer those questions as well. And I store them in 1Password in the notes field so that when I go back, I open 1Password, I answer all those questions with those exact, long, complicated passwords that I use for things. So some people would say it's a little overboard, but that's how I protect myself. Did I help? Did it help at all? Okay.
Like, possibly.
Think about it. We can talk about that more. Two-factor authentication. What is two-factor authentication? Two-factor is a way that when you log into a website, you get some immediate feedback that says, is this really you? And it comes through a second device. So the way that it knows it's you is something you know, something you have, and what's the third one? Some place you are or something. But if it knows that I have my iPhone, for example, and I'm logging in on my Mac, it knows I have my device, and it's the device I use all the time. So it knows that. Plus then, because I have an answer to the question that it sends me, which is a code, then it knows that I'm connected to that device. So this is the way they make sure that it's really you. So if I tried, for example, to log into iCloud right now on some device, here's the definition. You'll get that. I'm not going to read this to you. This is the way it works in Apple. If I'm logging in, signing in with my Apple ID, I'll get this message on my Mac because I'm logging in. Well, actually, I'm logging in over here on my phone. I get this message that I can click allow, and then when I click allow, it comes up with a code, a 6-digit code, and then I have to go back over my iPhone and punch in that code. You say, boy, that's a lot of work just to log into a website or log into some tool. But the reality is this is real good security, because if somebody else gets my password and tries to log into my Apple ID because they want to get into my account, get to my pictures or whatever, I'm going to know it because I'm going to get this on my phone, on my iPad. I get this message that says, hey, you're trying to log in. Do you want me to allow this to happen? So this is a double layer of protection. It's very valuable. I use this on all my important sites. Some of them don't do it this way. Like PayPal, for example. PayPal comes up with this screen. It says, I'm going to send a text message. Which phone do you want me to send a text message to? I don't have this phone no more. I haven't been able to get rid of this. But I say send it to that phone. Then it texts me back a security code. I get the security code. It pops up on my screen. I just tap it. It puts it in the thing, and then it lets me in. So this is the way that I make sure. If somebody else tries to log in, not only do they have to know my password, but I'm going to get the notification that somebody's trying to log into my account. And this is a layer of protection that's really valuable. I use this for banks. I use this for all the important stuff. Anything I can use it, I always use two-factor, yes.
There were two choices, cancel or did not get a code, question mark.
Yeah.
There's 6 lines to type the numbers in above the did not get a code.
The next thing, if I say allow, it's going to come up with a code right here. And then I have to type the code in. If for some reason something fails and I didn't get the code, I could say I didn't get a code. And they could keep trying that, but I would be getting the code because I'm going to get it on this device.
But if you got the code and somebody else was trying to log in, you just hit cancel?
Yeah.
Yeah, you just don't let them in. Don't type the code in.
No.
They're going to let them in. You would be on this screen, you say don't allow.
Oh, okay.
There, that would be the bad guy. He's going to be seeing that. You're going to be seeing this.
One thing when you do that, that center window that comes up, it's gonna show you where your internet provider is.
You see where
So
the
don't
login
freak
is.
out, because if your internet provider's in Youngstown, Ohio, that's gonna come up showing this is where you're logging in through. If you use a VPN and say
could be
you're
anywhere.
using Chicago, it's gonna say you're logging in Chicago. So you're gonna have to know with your VPN where you're being logging in at. If you use a foreign country for a VPN, that'll show that up too, so don't get nervous about that, but you need to know where your provider is
Just be
logging
aware
in
of it.
from.
So it's something you need to be aware of, that you can get really freaked out. I had it come up one time and said I was logging in from Germany.
Yeah.
And I knew it was me for a host of reasons I won't go into, but you have to think about that. Now, I will say a couple things. The way Apple does it here and the way Google does it is a lot more secure than the ones that use SMS. A lot of people with their two-factor text you a code, and it comes in as a text message, which is fine, it works. But if somebody hacks into, this has happened, where somebody got a hold of the SIM card and spoofed the people at AT&T and connected that SIM card, and it came to them on their phone instead. So it works. I would use it over nothing, but just be aware it's not as secure as methods like Apple's and some of those. Yes.
I may have been typing when you mentioned it, but, and I use the two-part authorization for financial and stuff,
Is it everywhere?
like you said, but I've never seen that. That's what I missed. I've never
This is
seen that
iCloud.
picture in the middle. How did that?
This is a different type. This is a little different. The ones you're talking about are just using the ones that most of the banks and everybody use.
Yep.
It's just coming to your text message. This one isn't going through a text message at all. It goes into a notification in your phone.
This is when somebody's trying to,
Log into my iCloud account.
and trying to do your double,
It's strictly your iCloud account is
oh, it's
what this
strictly
is
the
gonna look
iCloud.
like.
Or
Yeah,
iTunes.
this isn't
or
gonna come up from, you know,
the bank.
First National Bank. or-
Oh, okay.
This is just a way of doing it. This is one version of two-factor authentication.
Thank
This is Apple's version.
Yeah.
Okay,
This is the SMS version and the one that most financial institutions use.
right.
And I wanted to show you an example of both.
Yeah.
Yes, right.
This just happened to me in the last week. I was trying to log into Adobe using one password, and it kept sending me a code. I put it in and say this isn't any good. So I tried again, same thing. This is an invalid code. And I think I tried it maybe 4 times or so, and then I noticed I was able to log into Adobe without a second thing. Any thoughts on why they kept sending me invalid codes?
I would doubt that their codes were invalid. I just wonder if maybe they, I don't know. I'd call them and ask them. That's not, shouldn't do that.
You got the same answer I do. I don't know.
What I run into sometimes, if you get a sequence of codes sent, you can sometimes get out of phase,
You can get
so
out of
you're not
sequence,
using
right.
the most
I
current
have had
one.
that happen, where I got the first one, but I'd already resent, because it took so long to get there, I'd already said resend the code, and then I used the one that was from the previous time, that had already, on their end, they'd already disabled it. That could happen,
Okay.
especially when you're doing multiple repeats. So you have to wait long enough to make sure you're in sync. That'd be the only thing I
Or if
can.
you get drops in your internet connection, and you can maybe not even notice, because they can
Yeah.
be millisecond
It
drops.
can be very small amounts of time, yes.
I would say one thing I encounter is with some of these financial institutions, when you ask for this second factor to be sent, the code, it pops up on the same computer that you're working on, rather than a second device. So now, with messaging on my computer, I have it set up that it pops up a window, it says you've just got this message. Well, the message is the code. If I just click on it, it puts it right into the window and I'm in. But it's on the same computer, so it's in reality, it's not two-factor on 2 devices, it's just 2 different times. But somebody who's got possession of my iMac is gonna have both.
It's still two-factor, even though it's on the same device, because two-factor, you have to remember, there's lots of different ways to look at two factors, but what they want to make sure is that it's a device that you own. But that, I agree with you, that's not as good as something that truly is on a separate
A
device.
fingerprint would be better, or facial recognition would be better in that circumstance.
I totally agree.
Can I ask one other thing about,
Yes.
you mentioned fingerprints for identification. I have an iPhone and has the option of fingerprint identification. It never works for me. And I've been told it's because of age and dry skin and that sort of thing.
I'll tell you what I did on mine when I had that problem, because I had that with an older iPhone that had the fingerprint sensor. You get 5 different slots, you can store 5 fingerprints. I put the same fingerprint in 2 or 3 of those slots, and it worked, it solved all that problem. Maybe not the best way to do it, but I put the same finger in 3 or 4 of those slots, and it got better. It solved my problem.
I use the same fingerprint in all 5.
Yeah, you do it in 5 slots, but I use the same fingerprints on multiple slots because it seemed to get rid of some of that slight variation. and it solved my problem. You might give it a try, let me know if it works.
5 slots.
Yeah.
5 slots.
On your-
My phone's
on
only
touch.
got one button.
But in your passwords, in your settings for the iTouch, for the touch, you have 5 fingers. You can select 5 fingers.
Oh,
I just use the same finger for all 5 of them.
oh, in settings, go to settings.
Settings,
Underneath
touch,
what main?
it's under
area?
touch, passcode and touch, something like that.
Oh,
Look for-
okay.
It's in the passcode settings. Right where it is.
I have a similar problem. It seems to be varied with my touch or something the way I hold my finger, because I have a great deal of trouble in making it work. Maybe 1 time out of 10 it will work. Now, my son has put in one of his fingers in one of the other positions. And he was in town the other day. He hasn't used my iPhone for months, and he hit it and it worked immediately for him.
Yeah, your fingers can be really touch devices. Yeah, when I have a lot of problems with that, when I did, I don't have touch on mine now, but when I had it, when I would start having problems like that, I would redo it, do it for multiple devices. So put it in more than one. Put it in like 3 or 4, or don't take him out because you may need him. But I punch it in all 4 of them, and it's amazing how much that helps solve that problem.
Sometimes if your hands are cold too, if you
It
just
don't work when
rub
it's
your hand
cold.
on your hands to get some.
Cold or wet,
some
never works when
warmth
it's
to
cold or
your
wet.
thumb or finger,
Yeah,
whatever
if I
you use,
use
that
hand
helps
motion.
too. I have noticed though,
Really bad.
when I hand wash dishes, and I can't use my touch after I wash dishes because my hands have, my skin has swelled up, so. And I tend to have dry hands as well. So what I do is if it doesn't take my thumb, I would put lotion on my hands and then wait for it to sink into my skin and then try to use the.
Thanks for the tip on not washing dishes. I appreciate that.
You need to start washing dishes for your wife. Yeah.
I was just gonna say, I think that one of the things they asked me about was to put it at a different angle.
Yeah.
So if I
You gotta
started
do
out
that.
with the one straight on, then, a couple different angles, so when I picked it up and tried to use it, I was,
Yep.
one of the angles was gonna make.
I often wondered if this is why they're trying to make Face ID work, is because it gets rid of all these problems. But it has its own problem. But my face never fails like my finger used to fail. So, yeah.
I was just doing an experiment here with Amazon. They sent me a code to the phone, but it never showed up on messages on my Mac.
Huh, mine always does.
But it's green, so they're using a Windows-based messaging system, which doesn't show up on messages
That's
on the
why.
Mac.
Yeah, that's why.
So if it's blue, they're sending it from a Mac device. If it's green, it's coming from a Windows device.
Two-factor though, I would use it any place you can that's important to me. I have it turned on a couple things that are not real important to me, but I just love, I feel better about using it to protect myself. And I use it a lot, so that's two-factor. This one's common sense, I'm sure you all know this, but when you open emails, please don't just click on links. I mean, I got this email it looks so real. This is her real email address. And Melanie is a great person, but this email says, I'm stuck somewhere, I had a thing happen, I don't have any money, can you send me some money? I've got this email so many times, I knew right off this was a while back, I knew right off it was a fake. But, just don't click links, don't fall for everything you get in an email, because a lot of it's just.
Well, her email's in common.
Yeah, exactly, and I talked to her about it, but.
Yeah, yeah.
So I'm gonna spend more time on that, yes.
On fishing and things like this, one of the things that I've noticed, and I've gotten several of them in the last few weeks, actually, if I check on the address where it's
I'm
from,
king over in Africa.
it's
You
not,
send me.
it has nothing to do with what.
Yeah, we added the detail behind it, you see all kinds of stuff. And I had a presentation on this I gave a long time ago, which I took that out of. I showed how to look at all that stuff, but you guys are all Mac experts. But you can go in and look at the email, and look at all the detail behind that, all the header information. And you can see where it really came from and track it to some extent. And you
You
find
can
a
do
lot
that
of
just by
times.
clicking on the email address it came from.
Yes.
It'll drop down and show you, so if it says Amazon.com at blah, 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 blah dot Russia, you know it's not really Amazon.com.
It's really true.
I've been getting some strange text messages
Yeah, I
like
get
in the
some of
middle
those.
of the night, like 3 in the morning.
I've got those before.
And so I just been deleting them.
For those,
But they have like a website.
Well, the thing is, there's a couple of them, your email, in text messages on Mac and on an iPhone, you can block that text message too. So rather than just delete them, if you click on them, you can go in and block them, so that that doesn't come through in the future, then delete them, but you can block it. So I would block it before you just delete it.
Oh,
And
okay.
if you can't do that, let me know. I can do it. Yes?
I called the FBI down in Cincinnati, and they told me, and he said, is this common? Yeah. And he said, this, and I had told him people who sent me spam stuff, I said, I will send this to the Federal Bureau of Investigation. And I have done it too.
Yeah, you can report them too. Yeah, you can call your cell phone provider and let them know you're having that problem. That's a good point. All right. Next one, we've talked about this before. We had a whole subject about this a few months ago. Backups. Make backups. I'm not going to get into the software that's available for it. I don't care if you use Carbon Copy Cloner or some other tools. But I always say, have at least 3 copies of your data somewhere. Store the copies of 2 different types of media, so maybe it's a hard drive, one's in the cloud, and keep one of your backups off-site, which is why I use a cloud provider. But whatever you do, backup's the most important thing. Yes?
and with your iOS devices, like your phone, it has to do automatic backups. It has to be plugged in to an electrical outlet, plus it has to be on a Wi-Fi network to do that backup, because eventually, if you're doing automatic backups, it'll come up and say, you need to do a backup, but it needs to be plugged in and on a Wi-Fi network.
So that's backups. I'm primarily talking about the Mac here, but do backups on your iPhone too, your iPhone. Last one I talk about is Wi-Fi. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on this, but I will say this. When you're in a site, let's say you're at Starbucks, or you're at McDonald's, or wherever you're at, and you want to get on their internet, just look at the list of internets there and be sure you pick one that's good. Don't log into a site that's called, don't log into a network provider that's called free internet here. I mean, really, it may be all right, but just be really careful about where you connect, and don't just connect anything just because it's there. I don't have my phone set to just log into any internet site that pops up. You can tell it to log in automatically, but you can also tell it, don't just log in automatically. So think about what you connect to. Number 2, if you're going to log in a lot remote, you're going to be out or around a lot, you may want to consider a VPN. That's virtual private network. A VPN basically takes all your traffic, all the stuff that you type, and it encrypts it from as it leaves your phone. It's encrypted all the way to where it comes out at the other end. They call that a tunnel. And VPNs are, if you get a good VPN, they're not going to be free. So I pay a few bucks a month for a VPN service. And my phone, when it connects to a network, even the network here, it knows that I don't trust most sites. And it just automatically connects my VPN, and then I can do whatever I want, do my banking or whatever I decide to do, and not have to worry about it being secure. So that's number 2. And there's whole articles about picking a VPN. I'm not going to post those. If you want more information about VPNs, let me know and I can share that with you. And the last one is look at the bar, the URL bar at the top of your browser when you're connecting to the web. You want it to be HTTPS. If it don't have the S on the end, it's not a secure, protected device. It'll have a little lock too. In fact, I got a picture of this. I was at CNN. When you see this little lock in the top bar, that says through a secure connection. And if you look inside and you actually click on this, you'll see it's HTTPS://. You want the S there, especially, now, if you're just logging into my webpage, you probably don't care. But if you're logging into something, you want to conduct some kind of business, share your password. You're going to go into Facebook and you're going to punch in your password when you log in. You want it to be a secure connection. You want the S there. Okay? That makes sense? This is a real easy one to do. And if it's not got a secure connection, don't share anything you don't want somebody to know. Don't type your password. Don't give them your user ID because it's not secure. Okay? And then stay patched to stay secure. I stole that phrase from Bart Bouchard. He's a podcaster from Dublin, and that's important. That's all I have today. Any questions before we stop? Because we still have a little bit of time. We're going to be done
A
early.
question on the VPN issue. Do you notice any speed change when you connect it to the VPN? Does it
I
slow
don't.
things down?
It is a little slower. I know it's a little slower, but I don't notice it. So, I just have never been in a place where it caused enough speed problems that I felt that it was a problem. Here, I know it's slower. I know it has to be slower.
But it's worth it.
But to me, it's worth it. I just don't even think about it. I just use the VPN. I use one called Encrypt.me, and I use a family unlimited plan, so it's on Teresa's devices and my devices. So wherever we're at, I know we're going to be protected. And I did that. I started doing that when I traveled a lot for work, and I was in a lot of foreign countries even, and I really wanted protection there. But some people use VPN for other reasons. There's other unique things about it. You can pop up and look like you're in a different country. So if I wanted to look like I'm in the UK for some reason, like watching UK TV, I could look like I'm logging in Europe. But so it has some other things, but for me, it's all about security.
Some sites in Europe won't let you log in.
Yeah.
Unless you're using the VPN that shows you're in Germany or whatever.
There are sites like that. And that's especially true for them trying to log in here because of some of the restrictions for the EU laws around protection of data. If they're not in the UK, they can't even log in. Even if not in the US, they can't log in. So there are some reasons to use a VPN other than security, the bottom line. But security is the reason I use it. I highly recommend VPNs. If you're only going to connect at home, here, maybe at the library, you may be all right. I wouldn't want them at the library be connecting to my bank. Yeah.
How do you decide what VPN we're going to use?
I'll tell you the three things I look for. I look for a VPN that doesn't log my data, because I don't want somebody logging every time I connect somewhere. I don't want them creating logs of what I'm doing. Number two, I want to know what their policies are for my data and sharing my data and accessing what I do. And you have to trust them a little bit, but they've published their privacy policies, and I agree with the privacy policy. Maybe not all 40 pages, but I'm trying to understand it. And then number three is I really want to make sure I understand any hidden costs and what their prices are. And, that if they charge you by the minute or something, it can get really expensive. Do you have anything else, Bill? That's the things I look for.
I've been using that Avast ever since Bill had brought it up a couple of years ago, and it's been working fine. Occasionally at Netflix, it'll say, it appears you're using a VPN, please disable. I'm not sure why it comes up, but it doesn't come up all the time.
I've got that one too.
Some other sites will say you're using a VPN. Well, matter of fact, Apple. If you try to log into Apple in some of their things, if you've got a VPN, it won't allow you to do that unless you turn it on.
It's like, yeah, try to.
Right.
Yes.
I have a question about the two-factor authentication.
Yes.
I just thought about this. I belong to a credit union, and it does that automatically. And I also have an account at a bank, and it doesn't do that, but every now and then. Why would that be?
I would talk to them about that. I would call them up and say, hey, I noticed this. We might have a feel more secure if you had two-factor authentication. Why does it come up? Because I don't know technically what they're not doing, but I want it always to work. I want it to always work. And if somebody doesn't have it and I have to do business with them, I send them an email saying, hey, why don't you have this service available? Because I'm not as secure. And I just tell them.
Is that dependent upon either your IP address or your MAC address or anything like that? That would be changing in your case?
I don't know. I don't know. It makes sense. You can ask them, they'll tell you if it is. I can't imagine why that would be, but maybe there's something I don't know. I don't
Are
know.
you using the same browser all the time, or are you using Firefox or Safari?
I was using Google, and then I found out with security that Google is not the best one to use, so now I'm using Firefox.
When you get your Mac, you can use Safari.
Do what?
When you get your Mac, use Safari. It's probably more secure than.
It's the best.
It's far more secure than Chrome, for sure, for this kind of thing.
Firefox is great.
Firefox should be pretty good.
They've got an account feature now where you can set up an account within Firefox and it somehow secures your logins and stuff like that. I don't use it at all, but,
Yeah, I barely use Firefox. I almost always use Safari just because it's there.
right.
And I'm on 3 different devices. I just want it to be the same everywhere.
Firefox makes almost monthly updates.
Yeah.
There-
Yeah, they do.
There's always changes going on.
Yeah. Chrome updates a lot too, but I just don't trust Google. Yes.
And with the 2FA, I know like Google's 2FA, you can tell it that this is the device you always use, so it won't keep prompting you
That's
for the
true.
2FA on that device. So it's possible if she's not always using it, that she may have saved it on.
Yeah, did you hear that? If you're using Chrome, that's true. That's true.
Yeah, it's true on anything.
Chrome tries, Google tries to use some smart technology to figure out if it's still used, so you don't have to use the 2-factor every time. So they, if you log in on a device, and you're always on your iPad when you log in, it figures that out, and it tries to do things so that you don't have to have the 2FA every time. So they intentionally don't do it every time, because they learn patterns, and I don't know what all they learn, but they're trying to make it better. Lots of people are trying to solve the password problem, because passwords are a pain. Fact. Passwords are a pain, and somebody's going to figure out a better way. What it is going to be, who knows? But there's a lot of new stuff going on in this area that I didn't even talk about today. It's going to change passwords in the long run, but we're not there yet.
There's some apps, Discover Card for one, you can set up their mobile app to use the facial recognition.
Yeah, I do that with
You
mine.
log in and then it'll come up and do a facial recognition.
That's the way my bank does it. My bank does it with facial recognition or fingerprint.
Yeah.
My Discover does it that way. I've got 3 or 4 that they use my face, and it actually looks for my face. Unless I'm on my computer, which you can't use my face, then I have to do it the other way.
In Firefox, if you open up their latest version, to set up an account, there's a little circle in the top right corner, the little head and shoulders, and you click on that to log in to enter your email to continue to use Firefox Sync, which is lots of other features, Firefox Monitor, and there's a bunch of secure things that they've developed for the program.
Yeah, they're aggressive about that. All right, any other questions? Because we're going to stop here a few minutes early so you can get out in the snow and play before it's over. Thanks for coming today. Next week I hope Bill's back. I hope you learned something here. This presentation is going to go out today. I'll include that one page. It's got that link to that video. So you can see that video if you want to see it. And if you have any questions, send me an email. My email is right there. Or call me, or text me. All right? Thank you.